Have you ever used a satin paint for your ceiling? It just looks amazing. Let's get into it. Before we get started, we're going to need a few things. Let me show you some of the things that I prefer using. I'll leave a link in the description below for all the products I use in this video. I like to use this metal paint tray, the little feet on the bottom, and a 9-inch tray that fits inside of this. These are disposable. You can throw those out when you're done if you don't want to wash it out or reuse it. You're going to need a roller. We're going to be using the Worcester semi-rough. This is a 1/2-inch nap that I'm using. You're also going to need some type of pail like this. It's really good. A paintbrush to get those edges. Then you'll need a bucket of water, soapy water, with a couple rags to go in there. And if you have a container like this one, it also has a lid, you can store the primer when you're not using it. Then you're going to need some type of extension pole. This is the one that I'm going to be using. It's the Worcester shear lock pole. And I like this one because it goes onto the end of this one. It just clips on. And so that's going to be the supplies that you're going to want to get to paint the ceiling. Now it's time to choose a primer. You'll have to decide what type of primer you want to use. I'm going to be using the Kilts 2 primer. It's a fast drying primer, sealer, and stain blocker all in one. This works out really well for ceilings, walls, and I always use it on a lot of my projects. So we're going to open up the primer here and we're going to stir it up. Just like paint, it has stuff in it that needs to be mixed up. Another reason to have that bucket is to put this in there. Now we'll pour a little bit of our primer into our pan. I always wipe the outside edges, so when I put this back on here, it doesn't get stuck and it's easy to get off. I also have a paint stir if I needed to stir this up. I could use the paint stir as well. But since I have this other piece, it was a lot quicker and faster for me to do it that way. Get any stuff on you, dip it in your water. Primer's a little bit difficult to get off. Wipe it off before it dries. Since there's a big window here, when we're priming, it's important to go the length of the window. When the light comes in, you won't see any lines going this way. If you go the other way, you would see lines. If there's no window, then just go the longest run possible in that direction. Now, since it's the first time we're using our roller, and it's a new roller, we want to make sure we get it nice and saturated. Push a little bit, but not too hard. You just want to get the primer on there. See, I'm doing like a 2-step back and forth. You kind of want to do this 2-step. I'm kind of rocking it. We're going to need some more primer. It's used up quite a bit of primer already. This is a 1/2-inch nap that I'm using. I think it does pretty good to hold quite a bit of primer or paint, whichever you're using. 1/2-inch does really good for that. And then it's easy to spread on. Nice. Everything looks pretty good. That's 1 coat of primer on here. It typically takes about 2 hours for the primer here to dry. But in the meantime, I'm going to take my paint and I'm going to put it in this trash bag. That way I don't have to clean out my brush or anything. If I put it in some type of bag, you can use Walmart bags if you want. Just want to seal it up here. Just pull it tight the best you can. Tuck it under or something. And it won't dry out. We're going to go ahead and cut in with our primer. This is a 2-gallon rather than 1 gallon. These pour out really well. You don't want to get too much. You want to kind of gauge how much you need. You can't put any primer back in here. And the reason for that is you'll just contaminate this altogether. I have my paintbrush here. I have my paint jug. I have just enough in here that when I rest it in there, I'm going to get all the bristles up to a certain point. I don't really care to get the whole brush wet. And remember, when you're painting, you're not painting with the paint on the outside of the brush. It's all the paint inside of the brush. So all this really needs wiped off. That way you don't make these big drips. And then my paintbrush is loaded with paint and I'll be ready to go. On your ladder usually has a place you can put this. And we are painting the walls, so I plan on priming them as well. I'm gonna be using a lighter color. So I'll sand them, prime it, and then I'll paint it. We're gonna let this dry a couple hours. We've given it a couple hours here and the ceiling looks nice. It's all dry. We're gonna go ahead and put on our sanding disc. And this is a mesh paper. It's still the 220, but it's 220. It's like a knitted paper. I'll leave a link in the description below for this product as well as some of the other products that I use in this video. When you're starting to do this, hit it with a little light sand. Try to stay in the direction that you plan on painting so that you don't get any cross lines. That's the best way to do your sanding. We got that done. That was fairly easy to do. Now we're ready to add our final coat of primer. The second coat of primer goes on really easy. The second coat of primer is on. I won't have to go around and cut in because I was able to get the roller close enough on the second pass, and then the paint also has primer in it. So I'm just going to go ahead and run out the rest of the primer on areas like this here, just so I can use up what's left on here, because that's going to be all of the primer for now. That's going to do it for our primer. We're just working on the ceiling at the moment. We'll clean up our supplies and we'll get ready for the paint. For our paint tray, we're just going to use our brush and smooth this out. It'll be ready for some more primer if we decide we need to use more primer. But as far as the primer goes, we should be done with that. We should be done with our bucket too. After this dries, we'll be able to do a coat of paint, and that should finish off the ceiling for this room. So everything now has dried, so we're ready to do the ceiling. We're going to use the Behr Premium Plus satin finish. I really like this paint. I use it on my board and batten and everything else. This is a really good paint if you want to have a satin finish for your ceiling. I would go with something like this. This is a pure white. So now we're going to use our big brush little container for our paint and do the cut in all around the ceiling. You want to paint with paint inside the brush and not the paint on the outside of the brush. So after we do our cut in, we're just going to let it dry. We need to do a light sanding. We're not trying to sand off the paint. We're just trying to make it nice and smooth. So when we put our next coat on, it'll be really smooth. This is very key to having a smooth finish in the end. Now we're ready to add our final coat of paint. So the ceiling is all done. I think that it came out amazing. It's still got it dry, but I like it. I think satin looks really good for a ceiling. And if you want to wipe it down or clean it or something, you can with satin. I like that. Gives it a little bit of a shine, but not too much of a shine. Now we're also going to be doing a board and batten, not quite purple in this series. So you'll have to stay tuned for those videos. That's going to do it for this one. Make sure you like, subscribe so you don't miss any more of our videos, and we'll see you in the next one. Booyah!